All right, this is the teaching video for Math 9.4. Our learning target is we want to be able to determine the effects of changing a dimension with a polygon. I changed the length of the sides. What's going to happen to the perimeter? What's going to happen to the area? Now, remember, perimeter is the rim. It's the outside. It's the distance around something. So you just add up the distances around, you have the perimeter. And the area is inside. It's the squares that are inside. How much is in there? Okay. So let's start with perimeter. If I change the length of a side, what's going to happen to the perimeter? So I have a little triangle here, and I have a bigger one here. But I'm going to take this little triangle, and it has a side of 3 inches, 3 inches, and 2 inches. So I add those up, it has a perimeter of 8 inches. I want to do one twice as big, double, times 2. So I take each of the sides and times it by 2. 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 2 is 6, 2 times 2 is 4. So this is twice as big as this one. Okay? Now, I want to find the perimeter in this one. 6 plus 6 plus 4 is 16. So if I take the sides times 2, what do I do with the perimeter? Well, it goes from 8 to 16. It looks like that also is times 2. Okay? So it's pretty straightforward. If you take the perimeter, if you double the size, double the lengths, you just double the perimeter. Okay? Times 2 times 2. Let's see if that works with other ones. I have a parallelogram here. This one is a 3 by 4. So this is 3, we know this is 3, and if this is 4, we know this is 4. So I could add up the perimeter. 4 plus 4 is 8, 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 8 is a perimeter of 14 centimeters. Okay? Now, I'm going to take the sides times 3. 3 times larger. So this 3 becomes 9, this 4 becomes 12. Now I have a 9 by 12. So I got a 9, and then this would be 12, and this would be 9. I want to find the perimeter of this. I add them up. 9 plus 9 plus 12 plus 12 gets me to 42 centimeters. Okay? So 14 centimeters is my original. This is times 3. What do I do from 14 to 42? Well, that is also times 3. Okay? So whatever you times the sides by, you can take the original perimeter, times it by the same thing, and you'll get the new perimeter. So the idea for perimeter, it's pretty basic. It's straightforward. You have your old perimeter, you times whatever you times the sides by. Every side is times 2 or times 3 or times 4. You just multiply it by that same number and you'll get a new perimeter. Okay? Now, perimeter is straightforward. Area is a little different. The inside. So let's look over here. Here's area. Okay? So I have a little parallelogram and a bigger parallelogram. This one is 4 inches by 5 inches. Now the area equals base times length. And because this is that's a right angle, I know that's my height. Okay? So I can take 4 times 5, 20 inches squared. 20 inches squared is the area of this one. Now I'm going to take every side and times it by 2. 4 times 2 is 8. 5 times 2 is 10. All right, now the area is I know this is also a right angle, so it's the base 10 times the height 8. 80 inches squared. All right. Now, if this was like the perimeter, it would be times 2. So 20 times 2 would be 40. It doesn't work the same way. It's different. You're making more area. Okay, you're not just expanding the lengths of the sides, but you're making more area. Okay, so 20 times 2 would be 40. That doesn't work. I know I have the original area of this little one is 20. Once I times it by 2, then I get 80. So I'm going to stick with that same times 2. But because we're dealing with area, I'm going to square it. Okay? So now if I take this 20 times 2 squared, let's see what I get. Order of operations tells me to do the exponents first. 2 squared, 2 times 2 is 4. And 20 times 4 equals 80, which is what I wanted. Okay? So for an area, you take whatever you multiply it by, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and you square it. Okay? Let's look at this. I have a triangle here. Now, this is a pretty nice one because it has a right angle, so I know that this is my height, and over here this is my height. Okay? This is a 1 by 2 triangle. We know the area of a triangle is 1/2 times base times height. So 1/2 times the base is 1 times the height. 1 times 1 is 1. So this is an area. Let's do meters. So the area in this one is 1 meter squared. Now I want to times this little triangle by 5. So 1 times 5 is 5 meters. 2 times 5 is 10 meters. Okay? Now I'm going to find the area of this one. Area equals 1/2 times base times height. And when I do that formula, I get 25 meters squared. So I go from 1 meter squared to 25 meters squared. Times 5, it's not just doing times 5, because that would be 1 times 5 would be 5 meters squared. But remember, it's 5 squared because we're talking about area. So now I'm going to start with 1, my original, times 5 squared. Let's see if that gets me this. So I do my exponents to first. 5 times 5 is 25. 1 times 25 is 25, which is what I needed. Okay? So if I'm looking down here, perimeter, take the old one times whatever you multiply the side by, and you get the new. Area, you take the old area times whatever you times it by, squared, and you'll get the new. All right? That's the key. So let's come over here. One last thing, and then we'll be done with this. The big questions are this. What happens to the perimeter when you change the dimensions? Okay, if I change the dimensions by, say I change it by times 2, then it's going to be real simple. If the dimensions change by times 2, the perimeter changes. So this is the old, this is the new. So, oops. Dimensions times 2, perimeter times 2. Times 2, times 2. You just straightforward. Area, similar, a little different. So, got the original area, and then say you times it by 6. Times 6, and that would be the new area. That doesn't work. That's the formula for what you do if it's perimeter. But because you're doing area, area is always squared. When you're thinking of area, you gotta think of squares. So it's the old times whatever you change to the dimensions. So dimensions times 6, then you're going to do it times 6 squared. All right? So this one is just times it. This is times it, but it has to be squared. That's the key, because you're talking about area. Okay, so you can take any shape and any polygon, and you can multiply the dimensions, change the dimensions, and you can figure out the perimeter and the area based on doing this or doing this. Okay, watch the guided practice. Practice some of this stuff. If you have any questions, let me know.